call me anytime. Call me, I'll arrive. You can call me any day or night. Call me. Welcome back to StillerBros at the Movies, and if I sound like crap at this, it's because I feel like so sick right now. Like, probably should not even be out in public sick. But if there's any reason for me to go out and risk my health, it's for Supergirl.
So, obviously Supergirl is a character that has decades of history behind her.
Supergirl is a character who's really easy to explain to people who might not know who she is, but then you have to explain everything else about her.
You have to do a deeper dive, because obviously just calling her teenage girl but Superman is a wild understatement.
That's the easy way of doing it, but then you have to explain the almost 70 years of comic book history that she has been going through with different iterations of her. She's changed code names and origin stories and everything like that, and that's even before we get into the character's love life, which is everyone from Jimmy Olsen to the alternate reality versions of Superman to a horse. Really.
But ultimately, Supergirl is a character that has a huge fan base as well, because over the last 40-some years, she has appeared in a lot of different media, including her own movie in the 80s, and up until about 2019, her own TV show.
Yeah, and also multiple different animated iterations, whether it be the 1990s and early aughties Paul Dini version, or Little Miss looks like a cinnamon roll but could kill you right here from My Adventures with Superman.
Along with the fact that we've already seen this character in live action on the big screen before with Sasha Calle a couple of years ago on The Flash. Because DC basically started from scratch, we are getting a new iteration of the character, who we saw for the very first time last year in Superman.
And boy, did she get quite the introduction.
What the hell, dude? Why did you move the door?
I didn't move the door.
Hey, where is my dog?
But this time around, the character is played by Millie Alcock from House of the Dragons.
And from what we've seen, yeah, she seems to be nailing the idea that they're going with of Supergirl being this younger female version of Superman who actually saw Krypton get destroyed, so she's got trauma.
Yes, and that's part of what makes her such an interesting character, especially in most of the iterations of her, where she was basically pre-teen to teenager when she got sent off.
And because of light speed physics being what they are, her cousin has been on Earth for about 20 to 30 years by the time that she shows up.
So basically she went into a wormhole and came out the other side. Her baby cousin is now Superman.
But this movie is, the second movie with the title Supergirl. In a time like this where girl power narratives are seeing a huge uptick here and there, the fact that a Supergirl movie has been kind of inevitable. Hell, they've been working on this in some form or another pretty much since The Flash introduced the idea of Sasha Calle as Supergirl.
But then James Gunn and Peter Safran took over the DC universe, and they basically started from scratch, so we're here. And taking on the director's chair this time is Craig Gillespie, who is primarily known for his movies Lars and the Real Girl, I, Tonya, and Cruella.
Yeah, so basically a real journeyman director who picks really weird projects, and here he is finally getting his shot at a superhero movie. Though I don't doubt that he hasn't been approached to direct at least a couple episodes of some Marvel thing at one point or another.
It's a very good possibility given his track record with not just film but also TV.
But this is also a movie that is based primarily on the Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow run from Tom King, who I guess is a controversial comic book author, but I've never looked too deep into it.
Along with the art from Bilks Evely, who is basically one of the reasons why I wanted to read the book, because I saw the art and I liked it, and I just read the book, so I now know that the plot of what they are basing this off of is essentially you take True Grit, you set it in the Star Wars universe, and instead of John Wayne or Jeff Bridges, take your pick on whichever is your favorite, you stick Supergirl in the Rooster Cogburn role.
Yeah, so it's pretty much an interesting idea when it comes down to it. It's certainly an interesting pick for let's introduce this character, because Supergirl as a character has to go through a different kind of arc than Superman did, because in the previous Superman movie, we had Superman reaffirming his identity as Superman, the super nice guy who is super powerful, just like the best kind of person. Whereas Supergirl, we have a party girl who's using the partying persona to deal with her trauma.
Yeah.
And while a lot of people have pointed out that the aesthetics seem to look a lot like Guardians of the Galaxy, once again, James Gunn did not write this, he did not direct this. If there are any aesthetic similarities to the Guardians of the Galaxy, that's purely just because that's where blockbuster filmmaking takes these kinds of gritty space operas with a little bit of a comedic flair.
And speaking of gritty space with a comedic flair, we have taking on the role that everybody was kind of in agreement he was basically born to play. Jason Momoa returns to the DC universe as Lobo.
Yes. So, Jason Momoa was decent as Aquaman for the most part. He had one good movie and one really, really messy movie as Aquaman, and he was really good as the version of Aquaman they needed. But when it comes down to which comic book character he actually looked like, it was never in question that the character was intergalactic bounty hunter Lobo.
To the point that when he was originally approached to do Batman v Superman and Justice League, he thought he was going in to meet for Lobo.
But then he got Aquaman. Obviously, he had a lot of fun with that. But now he is Lobo. Reports have circulated since James Gunn and Peter Safran took over the DC universe that the first thing he texted to James Gunn was, "So, Lobo?"
So it's exciting to get that. It's also kind of exciting to get some more insight into what's going on in the DC universe, because it's been a while since our last entry in the DC universe.
Yes, we've had Superman, and then Peacemaker Season 2 happened, and the fact that the DC universe is doing a kind of slower rollout does really seem to bode well for it, but it also does kind of lead to the question of how is this going to work in a news cycle that moves faster than they're putting out movies.
You kind of get the idea of leave them wanting more, but at the same time, this is going slow. We've only got 3 properties deep into this with Creature Commandos, Superman, Peacemaker Season 2, and now Supergirl.
But then again, there's also Lanterns coming out later this year, and Clayface.
Yes.
With the fact that Clayface looks like a completely different movie than every other thing that the DC universe has put out.
Yes. And still, we don't have a Batman yet.
But when it comes down to it, are we excited for this? Yeah, pretty much. A Supergirl movie that looks like this, from the person who is basically penning every other screenplay in the DC universe right now, considering the fact that she's been tapped for this, she's been tapped for the Teen Titans movie, she's reportedly been tapped for the potential Wonder Woman movie. It kind of gives me the idea that, okay, whatever she did with the Supergirl script must have been amazing.
But we're about to go find out.
I mean, let's face it, they couldn't get any worse than what they did with the original 1980s Supergirl movie.
I can't!
Hell, they can't get any worse than Wonder Woman 1984.
I renounce my wish.
But for right now, we will see you guys after the jump. So it wasn't as good as Superman last year, but I still think this was pretty solid.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that really pushes it over the top is allowing the emotional core to be crypto for us.
Yeah.
Because in the year since Superman came out, we got our own little chaotic dog to pop into our lives who bears more than a passing resemblance to Crypto.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that doesn't hurt it, but yeah, pretty solid superhero movie.
Yeah.
So, let's get into it. Amelia Alcock, because of the nature of Supergirl's arc, needs to play very detached, but also give us the idea that she is going on this journey, and I think she pretty much nails it.
Yeah. It's not the most complex character arc, but it's definitely one that she works well, and let's face it, Supergirl is kind of an awesome character with a lot of backstory. I honestly feel like we could have had a little bit more to her, because it seemed like a lot of her stuff was given over to the other main big character of the movie, Ruthie.
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes down into one of my biggest criticisms of the movie, which is the villain, Krem, is kind of a non-entity when it comes to being a villain.
Well, he's that way in the comic too, but the comic's a lot more kind of esoteric, kind of just... There's not a lot of dialogue, and there's not a lot of action in the comic. In the comic, it is a lot more very word-heavy, in a sense, where it's a lot of caption boxes over some pretty good art.
Yeah, but the thing about Krem is that, as a villain, his basic motivation is sociopath, which isn't the worst thing to do with a villain. But in a world where villains like Lex Luthor already exist and everything like that, where we got stuff like the brilliant 1A monologue from Lex Luthor and everything like that, I feel like we need a little more than just this one particular space dickhead really needs to get taken down a peg.
Yeah, but at the same time, we can afford to have a few sort of empty villains in this sort of area.
Yeah, but maybe not as the final boss of the entire movie.
Yeah.
It feels like he's more of a character that should be, like, taken out pretty early on, and instead it's like, this is supposed to be the main villain. And I understand where the personal stakes are coming from, but also, he's just kind of some guy.
Yeah.
To the point that I think he even is quoting the Joker in some places, and it's just like, okay, you're kind of not earning this just from the simple fact that I don't know anything about you other than you're just some guy.
Yeah. I liked it overall. I think it was there was some points where it was a little long. We meander in a lot of places.
Yeah, the plot is a little thin in places, mostly because, once again, the villain doesn't have a motivation to... We don't cut away to the villain to have him have his grand villain speech to be like, this is exactly what I am thinking, this is my thoughts.
This isn't there's no greater motivation to it, but but we're still early on in the DCU. We're still building stuff. We're still kind of establishing the world, which there's not much in the way of leading up to anything. There's no hints at what we're going to be getting with Lanterns in a couple months, or even anything that could be happening with Man of Tomorrow.
Yeah, but I think that the biggest thing that they're going for is just to establish the more cosmic side of the DC universe. Very little of this movie takes place on Earth, to the point that we're basically establishing a bunch of different planets within the DC universe, a lot of different alien species and everything like that, just to basically be like, this is what an alien will look like in future DC movies. This is what other planets could potentially look like in future DC movies and everything like that.
I mean, give it this much, they're getting the deck stacked pretty quick, seeing as it took us until phase 2 for Marvel to give us stuff like this.
Yeah, but the difference is that the DC is going in with a lot of their characters already pre-established, whereas Marvel had to lay a bunch of groundwork with unfamiliar characters because they didn't have a lot of the popular characters right off the bat.
Yeah. Speaking of popular characters, Jason Momoa is having the time of his goddamn life, and I cannot be happier for him.
The fact that Lobo is probably one of the biggest highlights of this movie, and the fact that they use him so sparingly to the point that it leaves you wanting more of him. I love this for him, particularly because it feels like Jason Momoa is floating around and just channeling Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice in all the best ways.
Yeah.
And direction-wise, Craig Gillespie does serviceable work. I think a few of the fight scenes are a little incomprehensible, particularly with the way that light is taken care of, with the fact that there's a lot of darkened scenes and oranges and blues that kind of drown each other out.
Well, orange and blue is kind of a motif from the art in the comics. I'm not going to bring the comic up much more, but orange and blue is kind of the main color motif of the entire book. Especially a lot of oranges.
Well, visually, the movie that this most reminded me of was J.J. Abrams' 2009 Star Trek movie.
Yeah, a little bit.
With the with the alien characters and the orange and blue color grading and the action sequences and everything like that, it looked a lot like that.
Whereas J.J. Abrams' Star Trek had scenes where there was a lot of pristine quality to certain areas. This one is 100% the gritty, dirty, grungy sci-fi that you would get out of a Star Wars or a Looper or anything of that level, where it's a lived-in science fiction world.
Yeah, there's hardly ever a point where Kara like visits a planet that feels like a utopian paradise of like clean glass buildings everywhere, not a single problem in the world, everything like that. Basically, we're going to the more terrible, destitute planets.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Once again, Supergirl is very solid. It doesn't reach the natural highs of Superman from last year, but it definitely doesn't reach like the lows of Wonder Woman 84.
It feels very dark at times, which makes it a little harder to say I had a lot of fun with it. I enjoyed myself enough, and I'm interested to see this again and see where this can go from here. But all in all, it was kind of it just kind of had these little bits and pieces that kept it from being on the level it really could have been.
Yeah, I think it works as the next step in the DC universe. I think it works just as well on its own, but I don't know if it's gonna be like this big. Did we overlook this in the future when it comes to what critics think about it? I think it's pretty fine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go ahead and call it bad. I'm not going to go ahead and call it a masterpiece or anything like that. Craig Gillespie is nothing if not competent.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's it for right now. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to this channel, leave in the comments what you may or may not have thought of Supergirl 2026. And don't forget to tune in next time when, of course, the chicken lives. Bye.
Come on. Thanks for watching him, bitch.